There is a version of you that still exists somewhere. Not in a photograph, not in a home video buried in some dusty box in the attic, but right here. In the way your chest tightens when you smell fresh cut grass on a July evening. In the way your eyes close, just for a second, when you hear a screen door slam shut in the distance. That version of you is about 7 years old. Barefoot. Sunburned. And the happiest you have ever been. This story is about that kid. And the world that raised him. A world that did not have much, but somehow had everything. The way we were raised. Summer started the same way every year. Not with a calendar, not with the last day of school. It started with that first morning you woke up and realized nobody was going to tell you what to do today. You rolled out of bed. The sheets were warm. The window was already open because the house did not have air conditioning and nobody thought twice about it. Mama was in the kitchen. You could hear the pan. You could smell the bacon before your feet hit the floor. And your feet. Your feet were already tough by June. By August, you could walk across a gravel road without flinching. You could run through a field of clover and not slow down. Shoes were for church and school. Summer was barefoot. By 9 o'clock, you were out the door. Screen door banging behind you, Mama yelling something about being back before dark. Before dark. That was the only rule. And that was enough. You would meet up with the others. The kid from down the road, the two brothers from the yellow house, the girl who could throw a baseball harder than any of us. Nobody called ahead, nobody texted, nobody checked a schedule. You just showed up. And the day built itself. And when the afternoon got so hot that the air itself felt heavy, someone's mom would hand out popsicles. And you would sit there on the porch steps, all of you, legs swinging, juice dripping down your chin. Not saying much. Not needing to. Our feet were tough, our days were long. And life was good. Now, I want you to think about something. When was the last time you saw two kids shake hands? I do not mean at a ceremony, not at a graduation, not because some adult told them to. I mean on a dirt road, after settling something between themselves, looking each other in the eye. A handshake that meant something. Where I grew up, your handshake was your contract. Your word was your bond. And those were not just phrases people said, those were the rules. If you told Jimmy you would help him fix his bike on Saturday, you showed up on Saturday. If you borrowed Mr. Henderson's fishing rod, you brought it back clean, no one had to remind you. If you broke something, you said so, even if nobody saw. Especially if nobody saw. Do the right thing, even when no one is looking, it is called integrity. Integrity. That word gets thrown around a lot these days, on posters, on motivational videos, on coffee mugs. But back then, it was not a word, it was just the way things were. You did not learn it from a book, you did not hear it in a speech. You learned it from watching your daddy keep a promise when it cost him something. You learned it from your mama returning extra change at the grocery store when nobody would have known. You learned it from getting caught in a lie once and seeing the look on your granddaddy's face. Not anger. Disappointment. And that was worse than any punishment. That look taught you more than any classroom ever could. It taught you that who you are is what you do when nobody is watching. There was this kid in our town. I will not tell you his name, but if you grew up anywhere like where I grew up, you knew a kid just like him. He was smaller than most of us, quiet, carried his books a certain way, hugged them to his chest like they were the only things that belonged to him. One afternoon, I think it was a Tuesday sometime in the fall, a group of older boys started in on a younger kid at the end of the road. The kind of thing that happens sometimes, mean words, pushing. Most of us stood there. We did not join in, but we did not stop it either. And then that quiet kid, the one with the books, he walked right up to the middle of it. Did not yell, did not throw a punch. He just stood there, between them. And he said, "I will never forget this," he said. That is enough. 2 words. That is all it took. Be brave enough to always do the right thing, even when others do not. I have thought about that moment more times than I can count. Not because it was dramatic, there was no fight, no big speech. But because it taught me something I carry to this day. Bravery does not always roar. Sometimes bravery is a quiet kid with a stack of books, who simply decides he is not going to look the other way. And here is the thing nobody tells you when you are young. Doing the right thing is almost never the easy thing. It was not easy then. It is not easy now. But the people who raised us, they did not promise us easy. They promised us something better. They promised us that we would be able to sleep at night. Every boy needs a man who shows him how. Not how to be tough, not how to pretend. How to be steady. Mine was my grandfather. He had hands like old leather, thick fingers that could barely hold a pencil, but could rebuild a carburetor with his eyes half closed. He never sat me down and said, "Let me teach you how to be a man." He just let me be there. Hand me this, hold that, watch what I do. We would spend whole Saturdays under the hood of that truck. The radio playing something by Johnny Cash, grease on our shirts, a jar of sweet tea sitting on the bumper getting worn. And he would talk. Not a lot, but enough. He told me about the first job he ever had, 14 years old, at a feed store, loading 50-pound bags into trucks for $2 a day. He told me about the time he made a mistake at work and owned up to it, even though it cost him a week's pay. He told me about your grandmother, how nervous he was the first time he asked her to dance. My hands were shaking so bad, he said, I thought she would think I was sick. But mostly he taught me with silence. The way he would nod when I did something right, just a small nod, barely there, but it felt like winning the World Series. The way he would let me fail, let me strip a bolt, cross thread and nut, and then without a word hand me the right tool and let me try again. He was teaching me that a man does not have to know everything. A man just has to keep showing up. Keep trying. Keep his word. And when he does not know the answer, have the guts to say so. We need more older men teaching younger men how to become older men. I lost my grandfather on a Thursday in November. I was 26. And I remember standing in his garage after the funeral. Tools still hanging on the pegboard, that jar, the tea jar, still sitting on the workbench. And I thought, I am not ready. But then I heard his voice, clear as day. You do not have to be ready, you just have to show up. The best part of every day was the part right before it ended. That hour, you know the one. When the sun sits so low it turns the whole world golden, when the shadows get long and the air cools down just enough to make you shiver, even though it is still summer. You would be standing at the edge of the pond, or sitting on a branch that hung out over the creek, or lying in the grass staring at the sky turning pink and purple and orange. And you did not want it to end. You never wanted it to end. And then you would hear it. Far away, barely there. Your mama's voice. Supper is ready, you get in here. And you would pretend you did not hear her. She would call again. And again. And you would grab your fishing rod and that old tackle box and you would start walking, slow as you possibly could, because every step was one step closer to inside. And inside meant the day was done. When we were kids, our parents never had to force us to go outside and play, they had to force us to come inside. Think about that. Really think about that. We were not dragged outside, we were dragged in. The world out there, the dirt, the water, the trees, the sky, that was our television, our internet, our everything. And it never ran out of things to show us. I know what some people say. They say we are just being nostalgic, that we are romanticizing the past, that things were not really that simple. And maybe they are right. Maybe it was not perfect. I know it was not. But I also know this. We were taught to keep our word. We were taught that you do not need much to be happy. We were taught to stand up, even when it is hard, even when you stand alone. We were taught by people who had the patience to show us, not just tell us. And we were given a childhood where the whole world was our backyard. I am not saying things were better then. I am saying something was there. Something real. Something in the way we were raised that made us who we are. And if you are watching this right now, and you can feel it, that tightness in your chest, that sting behind your eyes, then you know exactly what I am talking about. Because you were there. You lived it. And no matter how much the world changes, that kid, the barefoot, sunburned, brave, honest, free kid, is still in there. Still you. And that is something nobody can take away. For everyone who grew up when the world was simpler and the lessons were real. Share this with someone who remembers.